So if you clicked on my video, it's probably because you're on the start of your autoimmune journey, or you don't have any answers and you're confused and feeling crazy like I have many times and still do sometimes, even to this day. I wanted to share my story with you guys and tell you kind of where I am in the process. So looking at my face, you might think, oh my gosh, you have a rash on your face and it's red. I get a lot of comments on it and it's not fun. It's very ugly to me and it's hard to deal with because sometimes it can be really hot and burning. Actually, right now it is a lot less red than it typically would be, and that is because I'm on medication for autoimmune disease. It is specifically a lupus medication. Before I go any further, you guys might be wondering, well, what are you diagnosed with? And the answer is, I do not have an official lupus diagnosis. I only so far have a diagnosis of spondyloarthritis, which was because on x-rays there was arthritis found in my back all the way up to my neck. But there was also arthritis found in other bones of mine, so I still don't have an answer to that. I asked my rheumatologist about it and was told that it's part of spondyloarthritis, which is not the case. Spondyloarthritis is having to do with your sacral joints, your spine up to your neck, and nothing else. I have arthritis in my knees. I have no soft cartilage left, no soft tissue at all left in my knees. I have arthritis in my fingers, my hands, my elbows. Pretty much all of my bones have arthritis. And I've only so far been diagnosed with spondyloarthritis. So I'm just going to kind of share my story and where I am in this very frustrating journey. You guys should know that you're not alone in this. There are so many people that go through this, and it's not fair, it's not right, especially here in America. Seems like the healthcare is just getting worse and worse. So I'll share my story with you. Maybe you're suspecting that you have lupus or something like lupus. So far, that's kind of the track that I'm on, and I say that because every single one of my doctors and every single one of my specialists that I see outside of my rheumatologist have looked at my bones, looked at my body, and the history of everything since I was approximately 15 years old. And they have said that based on all of this, that I have lupus going on. And so it's just a mixture of things. It's all of my symptoms and all of the damage to my body. It's the way that my rash spares my nose and my mouth, and that is a typical malar rash. And right now I do have a little bump right here. I usually never get bumps. It's very rare that I ever have bumps, but my whole upbringing I was told that I had rosacea. Well, none of the rosacea products ever worked, and I spent a lot of money, or my grandparents did, and a lot of time trying to get rosacea treatments that never worked. And so as I got older, I started to question, like, what is going on? Why do I have all of this pain in my body? Constant pain everywhere in my bones. My face would burn. It didn't match any of the symptoms of rosacea. I didn't get bumps. I didn't have raised blood vessels. Also, my rash, when I would have a flare-up, it would come down my neck and into my chest. It looked like I was just splotchy red all over the place. It looked like I had some kind of huge allergic reaction, and it would burn, and I would get fevers. And I didn't have whelps or bumps or anything. I just had the rash all the way down, and it was on fire. Like, I could melt a bag of peas in no time, frozen peas. And so a lot of my other symptoms include daily migraines, dry eyes, dry mouth, hair loss by the wads. Every single day I will lose a lot of hair. And just over the years, I was just gaslit, just told, like, oh, you know, you're just shedding. You have thick curly hair, which, by the way, my hair is really not thick at all. It's really not, especially as I've aged. My hair is very thin, actually. So just because I got layers of my hair makes it look a little bit thicker. But I have wads of hair that fall out every single day, and I was just told, oh, I'm just shedding. I was told, oh, it's just anxiety. So I have a tachycardic arrhythmia, And so sometimes my heart is completely normal as far as the rate, and other times my heart rate can go up to 200 beats per minute and I am on the brink of fainting, and I have fainted before. My blood pressure along with that, not always at the same time, but a lot of the same time, will also go up extremely high, like near stroke level blood pressure. And other times my blood pressure is completely normal. I'm on beta blockers. I've been on them since 2017 when we started having this issue with my tachycardia. I was approximately 18 or 19 years old when I discovered, wow, my heart rate's really not normal and I feel like I'm going to faint all the time. And that's when they put me on the medication, which is supposed to also control my blood pressure and my heart rate, but some days it doesn't matter. I could take 6 beta blockers and my heart is still going to be astronomically high and crazy and erratic, and it is just random how it happens. It's too high in general, but I do have those days where it's too low, so it's really just up and down. I have not been formally diagnosed with POTS, but there is consideration of that. My cardiologist has been considering it for a while as a possibility, because of the drastic changes and because of the fainting when I stand up and the random sweats and the way that it helps when I eat salt. Sometimes I'll be like I'm about to faint and then I'll eat something super salty and it makes me feel better. We don't have tilt table testing near me, so we're kind of just having to go based off of the symptoms and my abnormal EKGs and all the different things. I have had so much testing done. I've had brain MRIs that show nothing other than a Chiari-1 malformation, which is a pretty big deal, actually, the more that I read into it, and no one paid it any mind. So my doctors didn't pay it any mind, my neurologist didn't pay it any mind. He just said, oh, it's just a random thing that they just so happen to find. And then the more that I look into Chiari malformation, I'm like, oh my God, like this is what causes a lot of people to have these daily migraines and coordination issues. And if you just look into it, you would be amazed at what comes with that problem. So what Chiari malformation is, the back part of my brain is basically extending down into the hole at the bottom of my skull. So your brain is supposed to sit up in that hole, like in your skull normally, but the very bottom parts of my brain are coming down through that hole, and it can cause a whole bunch of issues. It can put pressure on your spinal cord. There's so many things, and I don't know that that is autoimmune related. I think that's a whole separate issue, but I threw that in here because it just goes to show that doctors are just like, oh yeah, it's nothing, when yes, it's very much something. People get surgery, brain surgery all the time to correct their Chiari malformations, and it is actually a pretty rare thing. But I have joined groups of other people that have this condition and they have had brain surgeries, and oh boy, the stuff they had to go through is crazy to even have it acknowledged. But back to the autoimmune thing. So my symptoms started when I was 15 years old. Now, back then I was working a lot. I actually started working when I was 14 years old, believe it or not. And I did a lot of heavy lifting, and I was just constantly going and working hard, doing hard physical labor. So back then I just thought, oh, I've hurt my bones. Like I've hurt my back, I've hurt my knees, you know, that kind of thing. But as time went on, I started having all of these other symptoms like migraines, nausea, dizziness, the high blood pressure came, and the tachycardia, and the dry mouth and the dry eyes, and the memory loss and the confusion, and having trouble speaking, sometimes getting my words mixed up or forgetting words. There were literally symptoms all throughout my body. My feet, from my toenails to the top of my head, were having issues. And I have a very thick medical profile with so many providers and so many specialists, because every system of my body is just kind of like going crazy. And so I got to a point where I started reading about autoimmune disease, and I figured that there may be something more going on. And So last year in 2024, towards the end of the year, I started to get really sick. So it had kind of started in the summer where I was getting worse rashes. I noticed that it got really bad out in the sun. I would just break out into this horrible face rash, more than what I already have, what you already see. And my heart was just beating so hard, my blood pressure, and some days I couldn't sleep. Some days I was sleeping 14 or more hours, and it was just making me feel crazy. And moving into the winter of 2024, things started to get worse, which is weird because usually for me, when the winter came, the cold air and less humidity and heat, it would kind of help me. It wouldn't take all my symptoms away, but it would help me as far as my skin and my rash and the headaches and different things like that. It would kind of help. So when it did the opposite in 2024 during the winter, I started to get really worried because my rashes were still getting bad, and it was doing the thing where it travels down to my chest more and more. Things just altogether started to get worse. And I was working 3 jobs at the time, so I thought maybe I'm just overworking myself, who knows. Well, it got so bad to the point that I couldn't work anymore. Just standing up, it was like all of the blood was rushing to my toes, and I could not even stand because it felt like my toes were going to pop off. My toes would get really, really bloody red. And then on the contrary of that, sometimes my toes would go purple and have no feeling. They would go numb. So it was one or the other. Either I had red hot burning toes that were like tomato red, or I had very cold, lifeless corpse toes that were purple and numb. And it was just like one or the other. And the same on my fingers. So I would get the purple or the red fingers, or alternatively, my fingers would go white. Well, I later discovered that this was Raynaud's disease. So, as of January, when 2025 began, I said, okay, something is going on here. I've got to investigate this. And my primary doctor said, I'm pretty sure that you have lupus, but I cannot diagnose that because I'm just primary care doctor. So she had me referred to a rheumatologist. When I went to this rheumatologist, they pretty much immediately diagnosed me with spondyloarthritis. They said, we see this really heavy arthritis and this curvature in your spine all the way up to your neck. It looks like it's very close to fusing. The bones are on their way to fusing, and your hips and your sacral joints have really bad arthritis and sacroiliitis, however you say that. And so they immediately diagnosed me with that, and they wanted to start me on oh my gosh, I can't think of the word for it right now, but it's an injection. It was called Cimzia, biologic injection. And so that is supposed to stop the progression of the disease in my back and my neck and, my hips. But it doesn't do anything for your knees and for all of your other joints or your other problems. So I kept telling my rheumatologist, like, hey, this shot is helping my stiffness in the morning, but it's not helping anything else. I still had the rash from my face all the way down. When I would flare, it would go all down my chest. I had profuse sweating. I was throwing up. I would pass out. Just all of these things kept getting worse and worse, on top of the fact that I kept getting infections, because when you're on a biologic, it's a very heavy immunosuppressant. So what it does, it suppresses your immune system because your immune system is overreacting, basically, to the autoimmune disease that they said was in my back. And so you're taking the risk of lowering your immune system, and that makes you more susceptible to infections, but you're treating the autoimmune disease. So it's really difficult. There's this middle lining and this risk, and I kept getting infections, and my lymph nodes were swelling. I actually got MRSA from what I believe was a hospital at one point, and it was really hard for me to heal from that because, first of all, MRSA is terrible, and second of all, I was on biologics. So my immune system was so poor. But anyway, that journey began in January, and here we are in July, almost in August. We're at the very end of July, and only just now is my rheumatologist starting to talk about lupus. Like, oh, well, you know, it might be lupus. It could be lupus. He's starting to talk like, maybe you're right, but he's not fully diagnosing me yet. So for the last 4-ish months, I have been on Plaquenil, also known as, how do you say it? Hydrochloroquine, I think is how you say the off-brand version. And so that is a lupus medication. And I just want to tell you guys, it has helped me astronomically. So when I was on the Cimzia, like I said, for the spondyloarthritis, it helped me feel less stiff in my hips and in my back. But what about all these other symptoms? And it was so frustrating because every time I went to the rheumatologist, I was like, I'm still puking, I'm still sweating, I'm still this, I'm still that. Like, it could be 50 degrees in a room and I would be profusely sweating for no reason. And I just kept being dismissed over and over again. And it got to the point where I came to terms with the fact that I was going to die. Like, that's how serious this was getting. I could not get out of the bed. I could not do anything. I was out of breath. I was just, I was dying. Like, I'm not even over exaggerating when I say that. And I begged him months ago. I begged him, please just consider trying me on some other kind of medication. You know, I think I may have lupus. And I kept telling him over and over again because I met every single criteria. Literally, it just wasn't showing in my blood work yet. It wasn't showing in my blood work. And it wasn't showing in my blood work that I had spondyloarthritis either. Like, nothing was showing up except for Hashimoto's disease, which I found out wasn't affecting my thyroid yet. So it's not even affecting my thyroid yet. It's in my body and it probably will affect my thyroid one day, but as of right now, it's not. I had that checked out as well by an endocrinologist, whole other story, but that is on my list of autoimmune diseases. And so he told me that he believed that I had Crohn's disease because I was showing some autoimmune markers for autoimmune activity in my stomach and my colon and my intestines. And his argument was that the Crohn's disease comes with spondyloarthritis. So what he wanted to do, this was at the beginning of this journey, is me get a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. And that was going to be his way of proving that I had Crohn's disease that comes along with spondyloarthritis. So guys, I went and I got the colonoscopy and I got the endoscopy, and guess what? I don't have Crohn's disease. I don't have celiac disease. I do not have anything like that that is associated with spondyloarthritis. But what I did have was extremely heavy inflammation all throughout. I had esophageal narrowing. I had polyps all in my stomach that they said were due to inflammation. I have a paralyzed colon, amongst many other things, esophagitis, autoimmune esophagitis, all kinds of stuff going on in my digestive system, which I didn't even know about. I had no idea. Like, I dealt with constipation, but I had no idea. I was suffering from a constricted throat for a long time, and I thought it was thyroid related, but it turns out it's because my esophagus was narrowing. Literally 2 weeks after I got my esophagus dilated, it went back into stenosis again, and it is even right now. I need to go get it dilated again. So I did have Crohn's disease. I reported that to him, and it was like, oh, well, you know, you still have spondyloarthritis, and that's still what this is. Well, I started testing positive on the ANAs. Finally, I had started testing positive. Let's see, I think my first positive showed up in April, if I'm not mistaken, March or April. And along with that were RNP antibodies. So it was weird because I was not testing for all of the lupus markers. My total complement level, also known as CH50, was high, but my C3 and my C4 were normal. C4 was on the lower end of normal, like it's just right there at the borderline of being too low, which is seen in lupus. But my CH50 was astronomically high, and so were my RNP antibodies, and I had a positive ANA as a result. But I only had a positive ANA because those autobodies and that complement tested positive. So I'm testing negative on the ANA. This is confusing, I know. But I'm testing positive for those autobodies, which make the ANA positive, if that makes sense. And this happens a lot in seronegative lupus, for example, because you're testing positive for certain parts of it, but not for all that you need to test positive for, is how it was described to me. But also, you can have a speckled ANA, and it is picked up as RNP autobodies, apparently, or antibodies. It gets very confusing. It's been described to me a few different ways, but needless to say, it can or cannot show up a lot of times if you have lupus, or sometimes it doesn't show up till a lot later. And ever since I was put on the Plaquenil approximately 4 months ago, it has helped me a lot. My symptoms severely went down. I still have a hard time, and I still have my bad days. Like today, I could hardly get out of the bed. Yesterday was the same way. I am really low on energy, but I had to go to a doctor's appointment today. And I still have a really hard time, but it is nothing like it used to be. I used to be bedbound every single day. Now I can at least have enough energy to get up. Now at least my rash has not come down to my chest and down my neck and just turned me like a freaking red tomato. I still have a rash, but it's nothing like it was. And I'm not profusely sweating. I'm not fainting like I was and throwing up and doing all of these things. And so I'm getting there. And today I just got my results back from some blood work that I did a few days ago, and I again tested positive on my ANA as well as my RNP antibodies. So I either have seronegative lupus or I have connective tissue disease that is overlapping with lupus. And this has been a very interesting journey. My rheumatologist has not diagnosed me yet, despite me testing positive ANA multiple times and high complement testing multiple times and RNP antibodies multiple times. I have been told before that they were false positives, and I keep getting them over and over again. And it's this kind of behavior that really makes us lose hope in the medical system. But guys, this has been going on. All of this medical stuff has been going on with me since I was, like I said, it started when I was 15. And I'm only just now getting to a point where, one, I am getting some relief, and two, it sounds like maybe we're in the right direction of a diagnosis. And I need that diagnosis to know what this is for a fact, know what this is, put a name on it. It's important to me because I can move forward in teaching myself about what's wrong. And you can say, oh, well, all of these things it's wrong, this is why it's wrong. And it helps me come to terms with my sickness that I have been experiencing for my entire life. And that's very important for me. And to also learn more about myself and my condition and my life outcome as time progresses forward. So that's my story. I'm sure I'll make more videos about, what's going on and the updates, and hopefully I have an official diagnosis on my chart before long. But if you guys have had a similar experience, feel free to leave it in the comments below. We can discuss, give each other advice, and hope. I am finally feeling hope. I am finally seeing a positive outcome. Plaquenil has helped me so much. So I just want to thank you guys for watching my videos. And if you have a comment, feel free to leave it below. And I will see you guys on the next video.